Next on Arizona 360, analyzing issues shaping 2019.
Every Republican is the 31st key vote.
And priorities already put forth by incoming policymakers.
They've got their eye on this surplus money.
Plus, dealing with our differences with civility in mind.
The social norms of civility and respect, they're fundamental to our democracy.
Hello and welcome to Arizona 360. I'm Lorraine Rivera. Thank you for joining us. Just days after we ring in the new year, elected lawmakers and officials in Arizona will take their oath of office. We're closing out 2018 with a look ahead at some of the issues they're expected to take up soon after Inauguration Day. On our Journalist Roundtable, Hank Stevenson, editor of the Yellow Sheet Report, Jim Ninsel, executive editor of the Tucson Weekly and Tucson Local Media, and Dan Shear, editor of the Green Valley News and Sahuarita Sun. Our conversation picks up on the topic of our next legislative session.
The legislative session here at the state level, I think water is going to be a big issue. We've got the drought contingency plan that CAP has agreed to. That's got to get through the legislature. Ducey's putting that very high up on his agenda. He's already promised $30 million towards water issues. That could be a fight. There are so many interests involved in water legislation that it could really go sideways. It seems like the governor and his team are doing everything to make sure that whatever we come to the table with in January is kind of what moves out of the legislature at the end of the day.
How likely are we to see that, Dan?
We have to see it, and we have to see it by the end of January. So if there's going to be a back and forth, it better be real quick, which this legislature is not real good at. But if you want the feds to step in and make all the decisions, then don't make a decision. So the back is up against the wall on this one. We have to make a decision. More important than that, though, is to look beyond the drought contingency plan and to look, give an honest assessment of conservation efforts in Arizona. We really need to do that going forward because we are going to have a trigger that means that we're going to have to cut back on water. That's just the way it is. But what are we going to do going forward to change our lifestyles to use less water in this state? So it goes, once we get the drought contingency plan in place, the game isn't over. It's really just beginning. We must focus on conservation.
Jim, we hear this every year, though. Is water going to be taken more seriously this year as opposed to others?
Well, it's being talked about at all layers of government as I'm talking to people. So it's certainly a topic of conversation because the situation is becoming more and more dire at Lake Mead. Certainly on water, which is one of the most contentious issues out there. The governor went in last year with his own plan and kind of tried to railroad the legislature, and they fought back against it. And the question is, how serious are they going to be there, and are they actually going to restrict the developers from sticking a straw in the aquifer anywhere they want? And that's a big question to be asked.
How likely are we to see some green, given that we have a little bit more of a diverse legislative session this year? I mean, we have more Democrats and newcomers to politics. Yeah,
so in the State House, there are 31 Republicans, 29 Democrats. So every Republican is the 31st key vote. So if you're going to lose a Republican on any legislation, you've got to replace them with a Democrat. And I think that, oftentimes the more conservative Republicans are the ones voting against Republican bills that move forward. So you may really see a shift away from passing policy that gets the entire Republican caucus on board towards passing policy that gets the vast majority of the Republican caucus on board, and maybe a couple of more moderate Democrats as well, who could be big players in the up-and-coming legislative session.
I think one other thing to keep your eye on up there is there's number one, this vehicle license fee, which was twice what people lawmakers were expecting when they passed it. It went from, they were thinking 16 to end up being instituted at $32. So there's a lot of blowback in the legislature about that, but I think Doug Ducey likes the idea of the money that's going to be coming in from that, and he said he'd veto any efforts to roll back that fee. Also, there's a weird, I don't want to get into the weeds here, there's a weird situation with the federal taxes and the state tax code and the federal tax cut, and it looks like the state's going to have a lot more money rolling in this session unless they do, or this year, unless they do some kind of special session. So I think you're going to see a lot of special interest groups going in and trying to get a piece of that money, that additional dollars that are coming in. I think there's going to be conservative Republicans who are going to push to basically get the tax in line with the federal taxes in order to not prevent that from coming in. But again, I think Doug Ducey likes the idea of having some extra money, being able to play Santa Claus and dish it out.
Dan, these guys have both alluded to conservative Republican, and then is it just a regular Republican, I'm assuming, that you guys are referring to? How likely are we to see that play out, given that we have, we still have a Republican governor?
Right, and I can say that down in our area, our Democratic leaders are buoyed by the small edge that the Republicans have in the House now. They really feel like they can get something done. They've got their eye on this surplus money. Everyone's going to be putting their pet projects forward and looking at how the governor might be spending that. But I think for the first time in a long time, the Democrats feel like maybe they can have some of their issues at least heard and get the ball rolling on it.
Criminal justice reform is also one to watch up there. This has been bubbling around in the background for a long time. It looked like there was going to be an entire committee dedicated to it until the potential chair of that committee started talking about how minorities don't properly blend in America, and sort of got stripped of that committee chairmanship, and the committee evaporated. But nonetheless, Rusty Bowers, who's the Speaker of the House, seems to have some commitment to at least taking a look at this legislation. Whether it goes anywhere remains to be seen, but that is a huge cost driver as well at the local and state level in terms of how much money we're spending on incarcerating people, and does it make sense with our current penal code. And I think there's a lot of push at the state level, the federal level, the local level to see about resolving some of the mandatory sentencing.
And it's very important to look at this not as a Democratic issue, and I think for years it has been. Criminal justice system reform has been something that people want to do for the down and out, and it really is a money issue. Number one, it costs us a lot of money to incarcerate people, and are these people who really should be in jail? And that's what we're really talking about, is jail versus prison on a lot of this. We should be in the business also of helping people improve their lives, and that's important too. But if you want to look at just as a money issue, it's a huge one. And this one does deserve a look, and it deserves to not be treated as a partisan issue.
Our conversation then turned to education and expectations put on incoming State Superintendent Kathy Hoffman. Now we have a teacher serving as superintendent of public instruction. How likely is that to drive the direction that the legislators have wanted for so long?
Well, the superintendent of public instruction is an interesting job. As we saw with Diane Douglas, at the end of the day, they don't have a whole lot of power. Their biggest kind of political tool is the bully pulpit, the ability to rally people to set some sort of an agenda that the legislature can frankly ignore. It's a Democrat in that office, which we haven't seen in a long time, which adds some interesting dynamics to the politics. She's been playing very kind of down the middle since she's been elected. But that office largely is an administrative job. You run the Department of Education. So other than Kathy Hoffman's ability to kind of bring a crowd and bring ideas and bring people together, she doesn't pass bills. So it'll be interesting to see, one, kind of how she does this job, how effective she is at it. Diane Douglas went in there and basically started swinging at everyone within sight, including the governor, within her first few weeks on the job, and damaged her political credibility for her entire 4-year term. I think Kathy Hoffman will be very careful not to do that.
And I think Kathy Hoffman needs to focus on two things. Number one is that we still are losing lots and lots of teachers. We're educating them and they're leaving because they can make more money elsewhere. And number two is we're having kids graduate from high school who are not prepared for even entry-level positions, and therefore that's going to affect companies coming to our state. So again, you hit education, just like criminal justice system reform, you hit it on this economic level, and more people are going to listen. So she doesn't pass bills, but she has the ear of those who do. Hank, if I could ask you to speculate for a little bit, do you think that a lot of the Republican legislators believe that they've done enough for education, given what has happened in the past year?
Yeah. So, look, you see a lot of Republican legislators talking about the 2020 plan still. We are going to finish off the 2020 plan, and that is not all that Red for Ed was asking for. That was probably the centerpiece of what teachers wanted when they went on strike, is, a 20% raise. They thought that was reasonable, bring us up to essentially the median for nationwide teacher pay. But they also wanted just funding restored to 2008 levels. They wanted capital funding. They wanted a lot of other things to go along with it. And I don't think I've heard a single Republican lawmaker talking about going in and this year using our surplus to bring education funding overall back to 2008 levels. There's a lot of them talking about paying down debt. There's a lot of them talking about maybe ending rollovers that had started years ago in the education system. So more money for education, but not necessarily these big things that Red for Ed wanted. And I think that generally speaking, they're looking towards more things like paying down debt, buying back the Capitol buildings. I wouldn't be surprised if they did that this year.
So if teachers continue to leave and we still don't have, we're not churning out the students that we expect, what impact did Red for Ed actually have?
Well, it did get the teachers a raise, but I think what happened was it started to build a lot of political momentum for Democrats, and it was effective in terms of winning a few more legislative seats. I think that made the difference in some of these legislative seats, or as one of the things that made a difference. And it certainly, you saw how powerful an issue it was when you saw Doug Ducey go from saying we can't afford more than 1% to we'll get you to 20%. I mean, it's clearly a powerful political issue. And I think it's going to continue to be, whether Republican lawmakers have heard the message or not, and they heard it enough to get to the 2020 plan. I think people are still going to be expecting more because education is a crucially important top issue to many, many voters out there.
All right, we'll end there on state news. Let's take a short break. We'll come back and we'll talk about what's about to happen with Arizona in the federal scope. The term civility came up again and again throughout the campaign season, a concept evoked by many as the attack ads and candidate critiques mounted. And we'd rather not wait until the next election year to talk about how to be more civil in our everyday lives. We got perspective from Carolyn Lukensmeyer, Executive Director of the National Institute for Civil Discourse. Let's break it down and keep it as simple as possible for, the holidays. People are sitting around the dinner table and having that conversation. How do we respectfully, civilly disagree with each other?
Well, for one thing, you really pause and think about the words you're using. One that comes up frequently as people are interacting with one another, if they vote differently, is they think they're stupid or crazy. And I think that's a place, if you hear yourself just about to say that, then ask a question. What information are you using that makes you think that way about the wall? Who influenced you? So you learn more about the person's decision to take the position they've taken, instead of being so quick to make a moral judgment about the person.
There are people who will probably be watching this and think we've become too sensitive. People who will think, what about sticks and stones? What do you say to them where we are becoming, we should be becoming more cognizant of our language and our tone, but are we crossing any boundaries of infringing on someone's just individuality?
We get asked that question very often too, in the sense of, I don't want my freedom stepped on. And we try to put it back in the context of, think of the social environments that you're in. Again, work, your religious expression, your neighborhood, and stop to think about how those interactions are happening today compared to how they were happening 6 months ago, or even a year. And when we ask that question, it's just like people kind of pop awake. It's like, oh my goodness, we really have changed how we treat each other. And then it's going back to the fundamental things that it's usually our moms or our parents taught us before we left the house to go to school. Mm-hmm. The critical question is, treat other people like you would like to be treated. And then pretty quickly this issue of are we too sensitive goes away. Because almost all of us do have an experience where someone else is being very disrespectful of us.
Who ultimately would you say is the gatekeeper of these types of conversations?
That's a great question. And I think you actually have to look at it at every level of system, if I can say it that way. In every family, if you ask a family this question, they would answer it, oh, in our house, it's our mom that's the gatekeeper. Or in our house, it's amazing, but it's our kindergartner that's the gatekeeper. So in each context, at work, in the place of worship, and in our political system, the gatekeepers are the people who are actually holding the standard of how we should behave with one another. And what's great about that is it means every one of us can be a gatekeeper to reestablish how we want to talk and listen to one another.
How do you suppose that we ought to respond when we're in an uncomfortable place and we recognize that the behavior, the language is not appropriate?
That's sometimes tough, because sometimes I feel like if I were to take a stand that the way you've just spoken to this gentleman or this woman is wrong, that it might just escalate. It might just get worse, or the shift might be targeted toward me. So it's very interesting, things that social scientists have discovered. If in fact you seem to be in the presence of a very serious conflict that's gotten too heated, address the person, but actually don't look them in the eye. Actually look at their feet. And what it does is shift that person's perception and take some of the heat out of the conversation.
Does that imply that you no longer respect the person, or you're just uncomfortable?
I don't think so. I think it implies that you want to stay in the conversation, but you don't want the conversation to get more heated.
What is the ultimate goal? I mean, society's changed, our social norms have developed over the years, but what is the goal of instituting practices like you're talking about today?
It's a very important goal. You know, our founders in the Constitutional Convention actually talked about civility, and respect and decency as part of the values that a democracy and a republic would have to be successful, because they knew we'd be in a lot of conflicts. So why this is so important, we've seen our social norms about civility and respect take a deep degradation in just about a 4-year period of time. It didn't start 4 years ago, but it has gone on a downward slide extremely fast. So the importance of this is we're blessed to live in this country. We're blessed to have the kind of freedoms we have, but our democracy only works if we continue to value everyone in our democracy and have the capacity to feel some experience of caring about people who are different than we are. So the social norms of civility and respect, they're fundamental to our democracy.
Carolyn, thank you so much.
Totally my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Getting back to our journalist roundtable, we're going to pick things up with how much Arizona is in the national spotlight. And again, Jim, your favorite line, we're going to ruin the magic of television. This is taped prior to January 1st, so there's a lot that we don't know. But let's start with Jon Kyl. How much did he actually serve Arizona during his short tenure in the Senate, Hank?
I think Jon Kyl largely served Jon Kyl's lobbying career while in the Senate. You know, he was kind of appointed to that gig largely due to, well, one, he was close with the McCain family. Two, we needed somebody in a pinch. He made a lot of sense to put him there. What he's done there was largely shepherd the Kavanaugh appointment, which is what he was lobbying on behalf of before he was appointed to the Senate. And, you know, there's been some great reporting on just how much this will benefit his lobbying career. Because, you know, he had been out of the Senate for several years. This put him back in the Senate, let him meet all the new senators, built his political clout, and now he's going to retire again back into lobbying. So what did Jon Kyl do for Arizona? He got, you know, Kavanaugh through. I think he's been a smart voice on water issues up there for the state. But other than that, you know, it was a very short tenure, and what it's going to be really doing is boosting his political career.
Dan, I'm just reading your body language. What's going on here?
Well, I think he needs to have a little credit. We know that basically he just warmed the seat, and there's not any way that you could get a whole lot done in that short amount of time. He did make sense. We knew that he didn't want the job full-time permanently, and so we got to give him a little bit of credit for doing what he did. His lobbying career was just fine before. You're right, it allowed him access, but I don't think access was really much of an issue for Jon Kyl before. So, so we thank him and we move on.
I would vote with Hank's side of this if I had to vote.
That's why you're in the middle.
No one ever accused Jon Kyl of being a dummy, I guess, is what I would say.
All right. Moving forward, Arizona will likely have 2 very freshmen or rookie senators, and that's new for the state. How likely is that to advance anything that Arizona really needs in the federal scope of things?
Yeah, we went from John McCain, who had been there forever, to Kyrsten Sinema, who's not even technically there yet, being our senior senator, which means that, you know, we no longer have the chairman of the Armed Services Committee, which is a big deal for all our military bases. And it means that essentially Arizona's starting fresh. So it's all kind of up to Kyrsten Sinema, who I think is, well liked in Washington. For a Democrat in the minority, will probably be a pretty effective senator.
I think our friends in Denmark say predictions are hard, especially about the future. And I think in particular with the federal government, that's very true because it is such a state of chaos these days. So we don't know what kind of impact our new senators are going to have once they're sworn in. I know what I've heard is that Kyrsten Sinema is actually already trying to figure out how she can land herself on a VP slot. So we'll see exactly how long she even sticks around to work on behalf of Arizonans. But she's certainly one of the smartest politicians we've seen come out of the Democratic Party in a very long time. And to be able to win in Arizona after the long drought of successful U.S. Senate candidates, we haven't had one since Dennis DeConcini retired in 1992, to be a Democrat and win that slot shows that she's a political powerhouse in the making.
Dan, what does Arizona need in the Senate?
We need someone who's going to represent Arizona. And I think if you look at the long history of John McCain's career, there was a point that he turned his attention from purely Arizona issues to national and international issues. And that certainly is part of the job, and it's important. But I almost look at this as a win for Arizona because hopefully, at least for a time, we're going to have a couple of people who are going to be focused strictly on Arizona issues. They may be looking at that next step, and who knows what that will be. And Kyrsten Sinema is certainly one who I think has not been shy about saying that. But for right now, maybe this is actually a win for us. We can keep their attention locally because we have lost our cachet nationally as far as Arizona goes, but maybe that's not such a bad thing.
I want to go back to something that you said earlier, Jim, or Dan, about we ought to be covering this differently, we journalists. What did we learn from 2018? How do we go forward in 2019?
Boy, what we learned in 2018 is how to manage a newsroom through chaos, and brought on by the president. Even a community newspaper where I am, what the president does affects us, and it affects the way people are voting and what they're talking about, the issues that are important to them. We just wrote a story a couple weeks ago on the stock market. We're Green Valley, for heaven's sakes. Why are we writing about the stock market? Because what the president's doing is affecting pocketbooks very, very locally. And so we have learned to take those national issues and to dig into the local stories because it's very important. We also have learned that there are extremes on both sides that get an awful lot of attention, but the reality is in the middle, and we need to look and shoot for the middle.
Jim, please tell me it's controlled chaos, right?
Well, I like to think that there's some element of control. I go back to William Goldman, R.I.P., the legendary Hollywood author and screenwriter who passed away. When I think of the federal government now, he said in Hollywood, nobody knows anything. And I think that's what's going on at the federal level now. You used to have some level of predictability, and that's out the window. So 2019 is going to be another fascinating year, certainly to watch. Raul Grijalva and his position in the Environment Committee is going to be, we already saw Ryan Zinke is out at Interior ahead of the investigations that are coming in that department. And man, fireworks are ahead. That's all I can say.
Hank, tell me it's not all doom and gloom.
No, it's all doom and gloom. Yeah. I mean,
great.
It's, I think that, politics is always a weird business. It's gotten significantly weirder in recent years. So, just rolling with the chaos.
What's our level?
But when the going gets weird, the weird turn pro. So we have that going for us.
And what's our level of responsibility as journalists, given, we're being looked at differently these days. It's nothing like we have seen in our time.
I think the level of responsibility has to start with the individual. And we've seen a lot of people who have just cut themselves off from social media, cut themselves off from watching, particularly in my area, cable news from 6 a.m. to 9 at night. Okay, maybe it's 7 at night, it's Green Valley, but they're cutting themselves off because they're exhausted and they're tired and they're depressed. And we keep bringing this to them every day. And I get phone calls at a community newspaper saying, too many political letters and we don't like the political cartoon. We need a break. And so we need to recognize that sometimes we have to cover important issues, but sometimes people need a break. Do we keep beating a dead horse? Are we just hammering away at this maybe too much? And sometimes I think we are.
Has this set the timer on 2020, albeit it's a ways, but politics, people do have voter fatigue at this point, but will they remember what they're consuming right now?
I think the politicians do not have political fatigue. And so, yes, they're lining themselves up. Like I said, there's already Democrats figuring out, hey, Democrats can win statewide in Arizona again. I want to get in line in 2020. You're seeing jockeying for the 2020 Senate race on the side for Democrats. So, and certainly on the presidential front, you're going to be seeing the same thing. So, yeah, I think that the politicians are off to the races. I agree with Dan. I think a lot of readers, viewers, citizens are in need of a break.
We wrapped up our discussion with some bold predictions from our panel about what will make headlines in 2019. We're going to have some fun now. Left to right. Hank, you're in the hot seat first.
Bold political prediction for 2018.
What is your bold 2019 political
2019,
prediction?
You're off. Oh, man.
No phoning a friend. You have less than 10 seconds.
Okay, I'm going to use all 10 seconds. Hold on. All right, I'll go with Ducey makes a big deal out of school safety, attempts to pass the same package that he did last year, and has to really wheel and deal with the Democrats to get it through. I think at the end of the day, he does get it through, including the anti-Second Amendment provisions that are in there that killed the bill last year. But I think with Democratic support, both in the House and the Senate, he gets some sort of school safety measure, including the ability to take people who are deemed dangerous as guns away.
Okay.
I'm going to pass to Dan while I
pass to a
work on
friend.
mine. That was an awfully good one. And
You're going to buy an extra
a
10
little
seconds.
flummoxed.
I believe that the president's undoing will be found in the economy, and I think we're going to see that in 2019. Fewer jobs, less cash in the paycheck, and I think people are finally going to turn on him, to be honest with you. And I'm talking about people in the Republican Party. I think that his approval ratings will go the lowest we've ever seen for any president.
Let's take this a step further. Housing market. Right now, it's a buyer's market or a seller's market. Will it become a buyer's market?
Probably. I think we're seeing a lot of, down where I am, just mixed results right now, people trying to decide whether this is a good time going into this very uncertain economic future to make a change. And when people do that and they pause, it tends to hurt the economy.
All right, Jim, we're going to give you the last word on this. Don't disappoint.
After a hard-fought Democratic primary between Regina Romero and Felicia Chu, Regina comes out on top, this Democratic nominee for mayor, and ends up taking City Hall in 2019.
Wow, I did not see that one coming. Breaking some news here on Arizona 360. Jim Ninsel, never disappoint. Dan Shear, Hank Stevenson, my thanks to all of you. And that's all for now. Thanks for joining us. Our team is looking ahead to the new year, and we want your feedback about some of the issues you think deserve our attention. Let us know on social media or email us at arizona360@azpm.org. We'll see you next week, and have a happy new year.